Greetings, invaders. My name is Scott. This is Book Invasion. Thank you for tuning in. Today, for the lack of doing my end of the year book tag, or maybe I had posted it, but I'm going to be doing a 2019 reading year in review. Let's kick it.
Welcome. Make yourself comfortable, won't you? I want to tell you a story.
Alright, so 2019 was a pretty good reading year. This was the year, this was my Booktube year, so to speak. My first full year on Booktube. I had started late last year in September, October, I believe. So this year, 2019, was the year that I was on Booktube. And in the past few years, I had read maybe 2 books a month or so. So I set my reading goal back then at maybe 24, 25 books. Then I think last year I'd gotten up to 40, just because I started reading more often. My reading spurts kind of kicked off, which is when I decided to join Booktube late last year. So this year I set my reading goal at 50, and right now I'm at 57, and I have a few more to read by the end of December, so maybe I'll hit 60. Don't know. So I did pretty good on my reading goals. That's excellent. I think I'll set it at 50 again next year. I think 60 is a bit of a stretch because most of the ones I read were for readathons and things like that. I hosted Tome Infinity, so I really cranked through a lot of books that month. And a few of them were graphic novels and novellas. I kind of mainly focused on some of those for these readathon challenges. But next year I want to read more of the full-fledged novels, and those take longer, so maybe I'll just leave it at 50. So I'll go through some of my highlights, my surprises, some disappointments that I read this year, and so I have all my Goodreads kind of 2019 reading list printed out. I don't really have them notated or anything, but I'll start reviewing these. So let's go with my lowest rated to highest. So my only 2-star read that I rated 2 stars was Ancillary Justice by Unlucky. I feel the shame. I feel it. I know, but it just wasn't for me. Let's move on. So I had a lot of 3-star books, which is obviously either the mediocre 3 stars or the hey, this is pretty good 3 stars. Yeah, you can never really tell. So let's go through some of those which are here. So some good 3-star reads. Let's see, what did I read? Dead Moon by Peter Clines. Dead Moon was part of this Threshold series that he made between The Fold and Paradox Bound. And I listened to Dead Moon because it was released on Audible. But it really just was kind of, it was kind of mad. It seemed really forced and really abrupt. There weren't very many far-stretching things that happened in this book, like a meteor hits the moon and all of a sudden the moon, well, first of all, the moon is now a graveyard for all these dead people. A meteor hits it, the dead start reanimating themselves. There were really no surprises on how that story went. In the beginning of the year, I did a readathon with D.G. Wiggins called Battlestar Suburbia by Chris McCrudden, about how home appliances are now ruling the galaxy and they've enslaved humans, which was really just a crazy concept, but we did a really in-depth review of that. You can see that back on my channel. Now I know that there's book 2 of that series. The author's writing a book 2 to that, which should be pretty interesting. For Nonfiction November, I read a 3-star book that's it's called I Used to Be a Miserable Fuck, An Every Man's Guide to a Meaningful Life by John Kim. And apparently John Kim's a angry therapist guy. But that book was okay. It had some good life pointers in it. It's more for like people that are in their mid-20s that are dating, and it has a lot of dating advice and stuff like that. But some of the other things about just being true to yourself and saying no and doing all that kind of stuff was kind of okay. I read One Word Kill by Mark Lawrence. I didn't really feel very strongly about that one. I was looking for more of a non-kid with cancer story and future versions of himself. I don't know. I didn't feel very strongly about that. I read a book called Palindrome Hana by Michael Bailey, which was pretty good. It's about 5 different interconnected stories of people. Anyway, moving on. Gideon the Ninth, I rated 3 stars. Rosewater by Tade Thompson was a good one, a good 3 stars. That was kind of a surprising one. So those are some of my 3-star highlights. Not all of them, sorry. I don't have time to go through all these things. So let's go through some of my 4-star reads. Uncanny Collateral by Brian McClellan was a good highlight of those. That was a good story. It was kind of a short novella. Mr. Shivers by Robert Jackson Bennett, which I found at the thrift store a while ago. Mr. Shivers. Robert Jackson Bennett, that was his first book. He's the one who also wrote Vigilance, and I think the one which the title escapes me, Foundryside, maybe. Mr. Shivers was good, a good kind of horror story. I read Beacon 23 by Hugh Howey. Again, that was kind of a reread because I read it a long time in the past. This was on audio. And now I heard Beacon 23 was going to be turned into a TV series. So I reread that one, which I really enjoyed. The humor in that is kind of good. It's about a guy who is in the space beacon guiding ships through galactic travel. And he's kind of he's kind of a war hero who was celebrated for his heroism, but now he suffers from PTSD, and he thinks he's a fraud because he wasn't really a hero. So that was good, a good one. Beacon 23 by Hugh Howey. The Simulation Hypothesis was part of Nonfiction November. It's about an MIT guy named Rizwan Virk, who writes that we're all living in a simulation. Here's kind of the evidence and why people think that. This was a book that kind of covers that and it's how it's like we only perceive things and it's rendering at the time we perceive it, but when we look away it's not really there, and there's certain things that was pretty crazy. Another highlight was Book and Blade, which is book 1 of the Hand of Perdition series by Eric Lind. This was kind of a novella. It's about a guy who kind of becomes the Reaper, so to speak. That was a really good one. I want to read more of that series. It's kind of an indie book. The Gutter Prayer, I did a review for that. We Sold Our Souls, I did a 4-star review on that. Or I gave that one 4 stars. I thought it was okay. I wanted more of a villainy type thing than just a concept of a villain. The Blackstone Mountain, I think. I read Dark Age by Pierce Brown. That was a 4-star read. That one was really heavy and kind of complicated. A Big Ship at the Edge of the Universe by Alex White. That was a good 4-star one. The Queen of Crows, which was book 2 in the Sacred Throne trilogy by Mike Cole. Book 3 I hope to read by the end of the year. Called The Killing Light. Oh, there's more. Let's see. The Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury. I read that one. That was good. So let's get on to my 5-star reads for 2019. I dropped the paper. 5-star reads. This one can go. So no specific order. Here are my 5-star reads for 2019, which were The Hod King by Josiah Bancroft, which is the Books of Babel number 3. That was excellent. Book 4 should be coming out 2021. I think it got delayed again. So Josiah is a great kind of fantasy author. It's a good steampunky type story, adventure, intrigue, about a guy who's just kind of searching for his missing wife in this tower of all these kind of layers and political rulings and things like that. My biggest surprise book of 2019 was Hollow Kingdom. Hollow Kingdom by Kira Jane Buxton. You should read this book. It was a big surprise to me because it's not really a sci-fi thing. It's kind of dystopian and a little bit of horror, but it's about a smart alecky domesticated crow. Who has a domesticated crow? Well, Kira Jane Buxton has a domesticated crow. You'll see it on her author signings where she has a little buddy sitting on her shoulder. It's a crow. What? And a doofy dog named Dennis. After the post-apocalyptic world where they're trying to save the ways of the humans, so to speak. So it gives you good admiration for humanity in general, a better understanding of your domesticated pets when you look at them and you wonder what they're thinking. Hollow Kingdom. Great book. Spicy Constellations and Other Recipes by Chad Lutsky, which is a horror short story collection, which I thought was really great. It was my first Lutsky book that I read. He had sent me an e-copy of it, and it was fantastic. I like the humor in some of those books, and if you're part of the horror Twitter community, you'll recognize a few of the names that are thrown around based on the characters in the book, which I thought were really great. There were some cringe moments, and then maggots and things getting shoved into impaling you in the mouth. And then there's another one where the guy wants to be a rock star. I really enjoyed that one. Binti by Nnedi Okorafor. That was a 5-star read for me. Cannibal Nuns from Outer Space. Have you not read this book? Have you not read this book yet? Cannibal Nuns from Outer Space. This was a 5-star read for me, just because of the silliness and the way this book is laid out. I did this as a readathon or a read along, whatever, with Cami from Cami's Corner and Nikki from my Read Past My Bedtime. But we read it together, and just the way the book is laid out, there are previews after you hit the play button. There are fake previews in the front of these fake movies. There's deleted scenes, there's author's commentary, there's alternate endings, there's a playlist listed in the back of this book. Just the way this whole book was laid out and the extras that came with it. This was like the deluxe edition, the special edition hardcover, which it looks fantastic. And the way that they placed these extras kind of in this book, Duncan P. Bradshaw did such a great job. And it was just a good, very B-movie horror book, and it just worked fantastic. I just thought it was funny. Obviously, not everyone's going to like it. They're going to think it's some silly, stupid thing, but that's what you have to expect going into something like this. Cannibal Nuns from Outer Space. I also read God's Debris, A Thought Experiments by Scott Adams. Scott Adams is the creator and author of the Dilbert cartoons. So I thought, what does he have to say about God's Debris? And so I read it, and it's presented in a conversation between a man and this other mystery man who is kind of questioning the other guy's beliefs and about God and religion and spirituality in a very practical and down-to-earth kind of conversation. And it was really good. System Failure by Joe Zija, Epic Failure Trilogy, Book 3. I'll probably have a video on that soon about the whole thing. Vigilance by Robert Jackson Bennett was a 5-star read. That was a fantastic book. One of the good fun books that I read was The Assassination of Brangwain Spurge. The Assassination of Brangwain Spurge by M.T. Anderson and Eugene Yelchin. Now this was a great book. Not half of it. Parts of it are told in picture form, and these pictures are kind of these transmissions that Brangwain is sending back to his home about his mission, but the rest is in text. His mission is to send a present from the Elven Kingdom, which Brangwain is a part of, to the Goblin Kingdom. So he traverses the mountain and give the Goblin King a present as a peace offering. But Brangwain doesn't know it's kind of a suicide mission. The present is really not a present, and they don't expect him to come back. But through happenstance and mishaps and something like that, he becomes friends and befriends a goblin, and henceforth it's a good buddy read, good buddy story. It's, I don't know, not Tolkien-esque, but I mean it takes place in elves and goblins. But the illustrations in this are fantastic. The book and the story was fantastic. I loved it a lot. I read it. I listened to it on audio while I had the physical copy. Recommended to do that. And Coyote Songs was another 5-star read by Gabino Iglesias. I have a review for that up. You should check that out. Chasing Graves by Ben Galley was a 5-star read for me. That book was fantastic. I want to read the rest of that series. I did an author interview with Ben and a book tour and a review. You should check out those videos. And then finally, Seven Blades in Black by Sam Sykes, which is the Grave of Empires series, book 1. Seven Blades in Black was a great read. I don't typically read fantasy stories, and especially ones that are 600 plus pages. But I just gave Seven Blades in Black a try because Sam Sykes is a local author in Arizona, and I just said, hey, let's check it out. I know he had written some other books, and his other series have had good acclaim, and said they were pretty snarky, and they liked the character and the humor in between them. And so I read Seven Blades in Black, and I just loved it. Sal the cacophony and the way that the stories played out, the revenge story, the list of names, and the way that the characters communicated to each other, the snarkiness of Sal. It was all fantastic. That was a 5-star read. So those are all my 5 stars, 4 stars, and 3 stars, and 1 2-star reads of 2019. Thanks for watching. You'll probably get more reviews from me as I finish this month. But for the sake of time, that's all I have. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you like these kind of books and this kind of stuff, make sure you like and subscribe. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.